Hi, and welcome to another edition of CX for CA podcast, a podcast focused on how businesses can gain a competitive advantage through their customer experience. Today, I'm delighted that we're going to be talking about MuleSoft and the difference it can make to businesses here in the Middle East. And I'm joined by two MuleSoft geniuses from Exah, Francois and Wian. Welcome, guys.
Thank you. Thanks for having us.
So, guys, let me start by saying I thought today maybe we could talk a little bit, first of all, about what MuleSoft is. And for anyone who's relatively new to MuleSoft out there, we can understand exactly the sort of impact it has on a business. I thought maybe we talk a little bit about the future as well. There's some exciting announcements from Salesforce recently about Agentforce and the more general sort of, AI buzz. And we can talk about the role that MuleSoft plays in that. And I thought also then it would be right for anyone of a technical nature for you guys to actually get under the hood and tell us a little bit about how MuleSoft actually works in practice. And maybe you can bring that to life in a case study or two of where you've used MuleSoft and Anger. And then we'll sort of, wrap it up from there. Does that, guys, work for you?
Sounds good.
We have some exciting things.
Fantastic. So let me tell you my understanding of MuleSoft at a very layman's sort of business sort of way, and you tell me if I'm right. So I first moved to the Middle East about 2002, and I was working with big ERP implementations. And what I was struck by is that there was all this money spent on these big technology solutions at the time because everyone understood, especially in a region like this where there's all these ambitious businesses, that they wanted to scale and automate everything through technology and gain all of this scale. But what they kept finding is they were locked into these big monolithic platforms that then the latest thing came out, iPhones came out in 2008, whatever it is, social media, and they were locked in and it was hard to integrate into whatever's new. Yeah. And even now we've got, who predicted Gen AI a couple of years ago or blockchain or whatever it might be. And so it feels to me like, and you guys tell me, but it feels to me like MuleSoft is a way of overcoming that hurdle, of actually saying, well, we can actually embrace any future technology out there and integrate everything while still keeping true to those principles of sort of, automation and scale and ambition. Yeah. Is that right? Or maybe you could tell me more.
Yeah, I think, George, you pretty much hit the nail on the head. I think historically, big companies bought a whole host of systems, everything specializing in either ERP, financial, or CRM. And as great as the technologies were on their own, the reality is the customer still stays at the center of all of those transactions. Now, how do we give that meaningful experience to a customer if we've got bespoke pieces of data lying all over the show? And I think that's why Salesforce bought over MuleSoft, because that was the golden thread that you needed to weave through the systems to make sure that all of it speaks to one another, make sure that you're empowering your sales teams to actually have meaningful, insightful conversations with your customers. And at the end of the day, pretty much as Salesforce puts it, putting your customer at the center of it. One of the bigger, I think, beauties that MuleSoft also brings to the equation is the fact that, as you said, new technologies are coming out. It feels like daily, just about. How do you plug new technology into existing infrastructure is also a big challenge. Instead of writing point-to-point type of integrations the whole time, every time a new software provider comes, MuleSoft now just gives you that platform to actually springboard any new initiatives that you have. So I think time and speed to delivery is like a huge benefit that you'll have having MuleSoft as the integration layer between the various systems. Francios, I don't know if you've got anything to add.
Yeah, maybe just the MuleSoft calls it a application network, and you structure your integration in such a way that you use a composable architecture. And what that means is when something new comes out, you reuse some of your existing APIs and all of the applications you've already built to construct something new from it.
So I'm going to try a metaphor with you about path dependence, right? So I remember a guy explaining this to me about the challenge with sort of these big monolithic platforms versus a kind of a MuleSoft integrate to anything. And he said this concept of path dependence. So he said, if you imagine you're in the kind of the wild west of America 200 years ago, and when you touch down on the East Coast and you want to get to the west where all the gold is, he said apparently that there would be, whether it was Boston or New York, there would be a sort of a sign, just as you set off on your wagon to sort of, cross over America. And the sign said, be careful what rut you pick, because you're going to be stuck in it for the whole way. Because, of course, the big wagons and the wheels, they would form certain ruts. So there were like 2 or 3 or 4 different paths you could take. And once you'd gone on one of those paths, it was very hard to get off, right? And I feel like that's an interesting metaphor, because if I've understood the proposition of MuleSoft is that you don't need to pick a certain technology and be locked into one vendor or one thing or that vendor's view of the world, and it's impossible or too costly to actually then move to something else. You can, if you have MuleSoft, am I right in thinking you can essentially just say, well, no matter what comes out next and no matter who produces it, we can take an API approach to actually integrate in that and bring that all part of an experience? Is that a useful metaphor? Does that make sense?
Yes, definitely. The way you structure those integrations means that you basically have 3 layers. The experience layer, where all of these interactions happen to the outside world. A system layer, which plugs into all these different back-end systems that no one ever sees. And your operational layer in the middle, where you do all the orchestration and the data going everywhere. And if any of those change, you just have to change one component, and it still interfaces with the other layers in a way that means that you can pivot quickly and you can adopt new technology quickly, and anything that comes out is easy to get into your network of applications that you use with inside your organization.
So just unpacking that. So you've got the sort of systems. So these are kind of the Salesforce, ERP, the inventory, something the customer's never going to see. But and of course, you can then sort of, build on those and integrate those and whatever they look. Yeah. You've got a services layer where maybe where the business logic is.
Yes, your operational layer is a more common term.
And then fantastic. And then you've got an experience level. So that's the bit that the customer sees. So you can also keep that customer experience, which is graded, automated in purchases or refunds or whatever it might be, but also switch out and decouple the systems underneath depending on what is best of breed. So it never constrains you into a particular vendor or a particular path someone else is choosing for you.
That's one of the big benefits. And I think also something important to highlight with MuleSoft is that obviously you're switching out different applications and different vendors. All of this still needs to remain secure, and you have different development teams, and MuleSoft has Anypoint Platform, which combines all of this functionality into one place to manage all of this from, and it just makes your life easier as a company, and there's less worries.
Yeah.
And it does, to a certain extent, MuleSoft almost reshapes the way software projects are done. We're starting to see more and more that it almost serves as the foundational piece to any other technology projects that you want to go after. If it is something like we want to build a commerce site for our customers, if you look at it through the lens of the consumer, the person that you're going to be dealing with, they are right off the gate going to go, what products can you sell at what prices? Once I've placed the order, what's the status of my order? Once I've got all of those things, where can I draw my invoices from your commerce platform? And if you look at technology stack, you're probably looking at 5 or 6 different pieces of infrastructure that you need just to set that up. And then all of them need to work together. So putting in MuleSoft right from the get-go kind of gives you the ability to lay that foundation first, and then you build the rest of the infrastructure. Where if you just go and build the commerce shop, it's kind of like putting the roof on the house before the house has even been built, right? So there's that beauty of MuleSoft as well, as from a data flow perspective, your infrastructure is looked after, and then you're just building on top of that.
Yeah, no, fantastic. And so let me try and extend my metaphor to pick up one thing you're saying. So what I like about what you're saying is this kind of iterative evolutionary approach. Once you have MuleSoft, you can evolve in whatever adjacent possible you want to take, whatever direction of integration at each of those sort of 3 levels. But a big part of that is actually sort of, who's actually doing the work and the integration, because it's not just the systems, but it's also the people internally. So to extend the metaphor I gave you about the sort of the wagons and sort of, going across sort of, America, the other challenge is that it's not just that you pick a certain path dependent on a certain rut that your wagon goes in, but you're also kind of bound by whoever's driving the wagon. Yeah. And once you've set off on that, he's the only guy who can operate the horses. And to some degree, that's a little bit true of software vendors, right? Is that if you buy into one sort of particular type of sort of software, then a business can find itself constrained by always needing to hark back to expensive developers or whatever it might be with the latest technology. But my understanding is that a lot of the what MuleSoft capability and advantage is it allows these more kind of citizen integrators, non-technical business folk who are technically savvy maybe, but not coders, to actually do some of this integration and actually use these tools. Have I understood that correctly?
Yeah, French will probably be able to elaborate on it, but the way I think about it as a non-technical person is once the initial infrastructure is set up, you almost have a whole library of things that you can use and drag into your flows as you need them. And then the big trick comes, okay, well, I need to understand business and I need to have business acumen to understand what are these projects going to be driving and so forth. And okay, well, where in my library do I get that information from, which API or whatever the case might be? So I do think there's a really good harmony between the tech guys and the more business savvy guys that need to work extremely close, well, probably closer than ever. Because again, you don't want your IT tech guys to be botched down in business processes, and you also don't want your business guys just be botched down with IT. Now there's a little bit of dovetailing between the two to make adjustments on the fly where needed. Francios, you can elaborate on that.
MuleSoft actually calls that library endpoint exchange, and you set up a portal for your API, you do a proper description. Anyone going to that portal can then experience the API for themselves. There's a mock endpoint which they can use to test the API. And if you're a external facing client, then you can also have a public portal for that API, meaning that you have a public link that's accessible to anyone. And that just expands your exposure so that anyone can go and look at these APIs, look at the descriptions, and they can compose their solutions from all these APIs, taking what they need from your library.
So if I as someone who doesn't code, but let's say I work in a business, so I understand that business, I have a kind of a BA understanding of that business, and I'm tech savvy enough to understand sort of applications, but again, I'm not coding. What is the limits of what I can do with a platform like MuleSoft? What is the point at which I just have to call you up, Francios, and say I've reached the limit of what I can achieve here?
It depends on how much you want to explore, but MuleSoft Code Builder, and you can compose flows which they literally drag and drop, and even in that you can use these APIs that were built by the more experienced coders, and you can just drag and drop them into your business flow that you understand, and it's something visual which it's quite easy to pick up. And that way it's accessible to even more junior guys and people that's not necessarily deep into the back-end dev of the tech world.
I think that becomes especially poignant for that experience layer where you've maybe got more creative-minded people who aren't coding but actually can orchestrate different types of customer experience that are going to be useful. So fantastic. And I mean, just again from your side, is it the case that you are worried about this? Because usually when you think about creative people running mad in terms of systems, there's security and there's sort of scalability issues or upgraded. So you're not, MuleSoft caters for all of that?
Yeah, definitely not worried. As I said, by exposing that API through Exchange, I can show you exactly what that API is capable of. But through Exchange as well, you need to request access. So I can lock the access down. You come in, you request access. I can vet that, okay, you have this level of access. I can set up a certain SLA for you to make sure that you don't crash our servers by constantly pushing information or asking for information. And in that same way, then I can control how much that API is scaled. And I can also set up auto scaling. So if I have 50 clients using the same thing, but they all use it at the end of the month, I don't have to keep that thing running at full capacity the whole time. You can set up auto scaling so that at that moment when it's needed, it will scale itself and create replicas, and it does the routing for you And you don't have to worry about that. It all happens without you constantly having to sit on the platform and monitor the traffic.
Okay, perfect. So I suppose the logical extension away from thinking about, these sort of citizen integrators is to actually talk about AI, right? Which is a sort of, the topic of everyone's sort of, thoughts and conversations over the last year or two. Yeah. But is especially poignant now. We're in sort of, mid-September 2024, and we've just recently had the announcement at Dreamforce of Agentforce. I wonder if you could tell us, to some degree, we're still finding out. We'll find out exactly what that means. But obviously, we've had sort of data cloud for a little while, and those feel to me like things which are consistent with this same principle of integrating data from all different locations and actually sort of, bringing that sum total through to kind of an agent experience. Am I right? I mean, what role do you think MuleSoft's got to play in this kind of AI future?
Yeah, look, so Francios, I can talk a bit more on the bold side, but I definitely think with, as you mentioned, the announcement of Agentforce coming up, this is obviously where your data being unified in one central spot becomes super important, because your AI is going to be as powerful as the data that you throw at it. If you've got a very small sample size, probably not going to have as meaningful interactions. If you've got skewed data, probably also going to start getting hallucinations and so forth. And I think that's the beauty that at least MuleSoft brings from a unifying the data and also transforming it into a readable format for whatever system that needs it. We talk about Salesforce, but I mean, this is whatever platform you are using. Make sure that the data is in the right format at the right place in order for the customers to get that meaningful interaction from something like Agentforce. Francios, you've probably got a bit more detail in terms of how AI is on the build side.
Yeah, I think getting it back to Agentforce, sometimes the data needed to make that API work or the AI work as well as possible, it's just too much to keep in one system. So then you need MuleSoft to go and either retrieve that data on demand or to expose the data lake or whatever to Agentforce so that it's accessible in that way, that you have it all available to that AI model to learn from it or to make the predictions from it.
Yeah. As a layman, I just feel like it's a continuation of the same story, right? I think that if I'm a business, I'm saying to myself, well, look, we want to use all of the knowledge and all of the customer data from all of the systems we have in order to orchestrate this automated AI experience. Probably if we've got, and we also don't know what the future is, because it's OpenAI today, maybe it's something else tomorrow, maybe something else. So that's where it feels like that is the MuleSoft promise, right? And if we have MuleSoft as a foundation to everything we're doing, that can put us on that path to AI in the future, whatever that future holds. And so it feels like, and again, we're all discovering about Agentforce, but it feels like MuleSoft will be the foundation of that kind of AI future for a lot of organizations, I think.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
I mean, in your analogy, when that wagon all of a sudden changed to an aeroplane, there's multiple routes, multiple ways of getting there, and multiple times of getting there. And this is exactly what MuleSoft does, is regardless of route or vehicle, you want a place where all your data can just flow seamlessly, regardless of what systems are at play. That's ultimately, I think, my biggest benefit that I see for organizations. I mean, for us coming from a place like South Africa, where everyone's also super price conscious and all of that, everyone's looking at, where am I going to get the best deal, all of that. Some people strip out new technologies or get a bit disheartened by some other ones, and then they want to do Salesforce or whatever the case might be. If you've got that infrastructure set up, it's no more long paths to development. It's strip out a new old system, replace it with a new one, and off we go.
And so if you are an existing Salesforce customer, or if you're new to Salesforce, MuleSoft is an option for both of you, or it can be at any point of your life cycle?
Yeah, I mean, Francios will give a bit of details. He's done in the trenches with the project work, but I mean, we've seen both sides of it. Customers that have been on Salesforce for many years, tried other iPaaS solutions and so forth, and then eventually decided on MuleSoft, and we've taken that over. And we've also had guys that started fresh, nothing in place, and we need to bring it from the ground up. So seen both sides of it. It's definitely easier with MuleSoft.
Yeah, as a Salesforce customer, MuleSoft provides some key benefits where the flows that you build in MuleSoft are available inside Salesforce flows. So you basically have direct access to MuleSoft from within Salesforce. And the other way around, MuleSoft can access a lot of the events and all of the information that's coming from your workings within inside Salesforce, and it can distribute that back out to all the other systems that you need to communicate with.
So, I mean, this is interesting. I think it feels like that sort of time to really actually get under the hood a little bit in terms of the technology. So there will be some people out there who'll be trying to understand the business benefit we talked about, but actually from a technology sort of side and how it works. Maybe you could give us a bit of an understanding of that, and maybe bring it to life with an example from your experience in South Africa.
I think a good example to start with is how it's hosted. So MuleSoft, because they're so experienced, they realize that you can't just provide one solution. You have customers that want the solution to be on premise. You have a different set of customers that want everything to be in the cloud. And then you have that hybrid model where you need some of the stuff on premise and the rest to be in the cloud. And MuleSoft can do all of that. They have RTF, Runtime Fabric, which you host yourself. You can host it on AWS, or you can spin up your own servers in your own data center and just install that. And you have your control plane on top of that, which is where you manage all of these things, and that can still run in the cloud. So it means you have the security of having it run locally, but the accessibility of being able to visualize it and manage it, turn things on and off, change some of the settings from a cloud platform, which means you can access it from anywhere. And I think that provides a lot of flexibility, which is always good. And I know, for instance, in some of the regions where we are now, that data residency is a key consideration. And for them, something like Runtime Fabric is the perfect solution, because it allows them to run the server in country, but it doesn't limit them on exposing the API to anyone out there to basically use that information.
So to put that in terms that I would understand, so here in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, there's obviously a need, like many other countries, to keep data within the country, data of a certain sort of sensitivity, and so there are these sort of classic sort of data residency issues with sort of SaaS. But what you're saying is actually MuleSoft is not going to cause you any problems there, and that an organization can keep all of its data residence within the kingdom and also embrace everything we were saying about MuleSoft.
Yeah, so it allows you to keep your data, residency compliance, and it also makes you flexible, and it gives you that agility to keep your data in one place, but to use it where it's needed.
Okay. And if you were speaking to a sort of a CTO of a business, and they would be saying, the CMO, the CEO, they really want this. They really want this MuleSoft future. They bought into the wagon wheel example, and they're all over it. But there are other solutions out there, right? There must be a reason why you chose MuleSoft as an organization to focus and specialize in, and you must feel like it's better than its alternatives. So maybe you could just help. What does that selection look like? Why choose MuleSoft?
I think it's not just personal. If you look at Gartner's Magic Quadrant, MuleSoft has been featuring there for, I think it's close to a decade now. And there's a very good reason. I think the main one being everything in one platform. And they have so much exposure, they've seen it all. They've seen all the security issues. They have a fix for that. And even when you're building new APIs, sometimes you get development shops, or you get external partners helping you, but how do you control the quality of what's being delivered? MuleSoft has API governance, which means you can set up certain security gates and certain quality gates that mean that when something enters your realm or your organization, you know that it complies to a certain set of rules. And I think all of that, coupled with the Anypoint Exchange, which allows you to basically have that library that's usable to anyone, it just makes your life so much easier than what any of the competition can give you.
And it seems like over the last, I'd say 12 or 24 months, MuleSoft's also been very aggressive in terms of, not just their product offering from a commercial perspective as well. I know they've recently gone quite elasticity, what's the right word?
Easy for you to say.
That one. With regards to the consumption model as well, in terms of, as Francios said, how many APIs are needed. There's maybe once-off runs where you've got huge batches that you need to run, and then it all of a sudden comes down again. They cater for those scenarios, and I think it's also what we've seen, especially in the region, is it's no longer just an enterprise client's game. You can see smaller customers actually going onto the MuleSoft journey, and it's actually affordable for them based on that elasticity that they get from a commercial perspective. So I think that's also a bit of an assumption that people make, is that MuleSoft is just this behemoth platform for only the big enterprise clients. I mean, we've seen very, very small businesses that use MuleSoft very successfully. And I think that's probably one of the other selling points, is you either get the big players that only focus on the big ones, or you get the small players that only focus on the small ones. But there's very seldom that you get a hybrid that just goes across the board. And MuleSoft's kind of been the house for that. I mean, we've seen our fair share of frustrations with some of the other middleware providers, and MuleSoft hasn't let us down yet.
Yeah, it allows you to scale from starting with that small implementation. You can then just add on what you need, especially with the new pricing model. If you just need like a little bit, just a few extra API calls a month, you can do that. If you see that, okay, Black Friday is coming up and you know that you're going to have a lot more load, you're just paying that extra for that 1 month. And that's it. So it just makes it more affordable.
Look, 100%. A lot of this really resonates in terms of the ambitions of companies in the Middle East, and thinking specifically of the Kingdom. I mean, obviously, for those that would know us, they would know that we actually both work for different Salesforce partners. Yeah. So, a question might be, why are we both sitting here? And I think that, for us, from our side, from a horizontal side, is that, we've got an office in Saudi now with about sort of, 20 people. And I was speaking to the country manager, and he was just saying, this is the conversation that keeps coming up again and again about how do we actually, embrace a Salesforce future? How do we embrace an AI future? But how do we actually how do we allow the organization to scale without constraint, to help to get all those benefits of automation we've been talking about before you even get into the possibilities of AI, and be able to do that in whatever, and without ever constraining them against the future innovative breakthroughs that the Kingdom, and all of their ambition want to achieve. And so, we said to ourselves, well, we need to work with, the best MuleSoft partner out there. Who is the best in the world? And that led us to your door, right? And so I wonder if, I'm sure you're not going to, deny my assessment of you guys and your expertise. I wonder if you just give us a little bit of a view of the types of clients you've worked with in South Africa, and a little bit about how long you've been working with MuleSoft at Exah.
All right. Yeah, so Exah has been around, I think we're approaching our 11th year, and we've been a Salesforce partner for about 7 years. Locally, back home in South Africa, we look after a lot of the fintech companies, a lot of the bigger banks. Not that it might mean anything to some of the audience, but they can go and look them up, the Absas. We do work with Capitec and so forth. And then we do quite a bit of work in the healthcare sector as well. These are also industries where they've adopted MuleSoft very successfully, especially considering the amount of information you have around a customer, a patient, and so forth, and bringing all that together. You need something like MuleSoft, and the tricky portion of it is it's all sensitive customer information. You're dealing with either patient data or really sensitive salary type of information. So from a data security perspective, this is just where MuleSoft kind of was a home run for them. And yeah, I must say, Francios and his team has done a phenomenal job, just basically getting those projects over the line in I think a record amount of time. I mean, if you think about the largest bank in South Africa going on to something on MuleSoft in a couple of months. Back in the day, these projects were 24-month projects at the very least. So really good successes at home, and obviously with us holding hands with Horizontal now. We're really excited about the journey. I mean, we obviously know about you guys for years now, and seeing your presence at World Tour just brought a tear to my eyes, where I was just like, I'm so glad they're embracing us from a little boutique firm from South Africa.
But you see the potential from MuleSoft in the region, and you're moving out here as well?
Yeah, that's the big focus for us when we came to the region was not to kind of ruffle feathers and get involved with what everyone else was doing. We heard that there was a bit of a cry for help in the MuleSoft shop, and we said, well, we'd gladly get involved in that. And I think that's why the partnership with Horizontal just is an absolute slam dunk, because we can bring the MuleSoft experience, and you guys definitely know the local market and have the local expertise to pull it off. So no way we won't be successful.
That's it. Look, I think we're all really excited. So, obviously, we've had a few events in the kingdom recently, and there's a few more. But if someone is interested in finding out more, they've got questions, or they want to have a workshop, or they want to have a discussion, or whatever it might be, what's the best way of getting hold of you guys?
Yeah, so you can either hit us up on LinkedIn. It's Francios Kleynhans or Wian Gaggero. Good luck spelling that. Or simply,
maybe just the website would be a better way.
Or just go onto our website. It's exah.co.za. They can have a look through there, see what we specialize in. There's a contact us form, and we're happy to have conversations with whoever's keen to learn a bit more about MuleSoft. I mean, no commitments, obviously.
Hey, fantastic. And likewise, if you want to reach out to Horizontal, it's horizontal.com, or you can go to horizontaldigital.com, just to contact us form, or find me on George Smith, which probably is a little bit easier on LinkedIn to spell. But anyway, look, guys, it's fantastic. Any final thoughts from yourself about your views of the region and what you're seeing here and the future?
Look, I mean, we've had a few conversations over the last couple of months with Salesforce, and there's huge investment in the region, both, if you look at Dubai, KSA, everywhere, they're knuckling down, doubling down, putting in more effort, more resources. So I think we are but at the tip of the iceberg, as they say. I think there's still a lot of growth coming in the region. Rather get on the bandwagon sooner rather than later, before all your competitors get on there.
Hey, fantastic. Well, look, super excited about the partnership, and excited about all the events to come. And thanks very much for joining us today.
Thanks for having us, George. Appreciate it.